Hello and welcome to week 1 in the history of psychology. Welcome to spring 2025. I'm Mark Kavanaugh, your instructor, and looking forward to teach this class. It's been a while since I've taught this one, so this is a fun class for me to teach. I'm kind of into history and that kind of thing. So each week in my classes, I post a video like this one, giving you a little bit about what's going to be going on this week, and this is the first of those videos. So by way of orientation, let's look at both Brightspace and the course book for this class to get us started on the same foot. So here we have the entry page into the history of psychology. Obviously, you're watching this video in the announcement section. It'll be right there. And the only link that you really have to be concerned about is the content link. You click on content, and it's going to go to where I was just a moment ago, which is the course timeline. But let's start the overview syllabus. And here we have basic course information. Go over that. These are the links to the course book. That is where all the content of the classes, descriptions of the material I want you to learn, the discussions, the quizzes, and the assignments are contained right there. And then we have an optional textbook. I think you should read it. It enhances the class, but everything you need to read is in here, is in the course book. Then a little section about me. I did a video here explaining a little bit about who I am, support resources at KV, the instructional hierarchy in my department, including me, and the syllabus. So make sure you review the syllabus. This has policies and expectations, and if you scroll all the way down here, here's grading, how you're going to be graded. It should be discussions worth 25%, chapter quizzes and assignments worth 50%, and then 2 special assignments, a history timeline and an article review, both of which are discussed in the course book. The place you'll be spending the most time, however, is in the course timeline. Go to the timeline here. Read through all this material. Please take the time to do that. There's a place to just go off topic. It's the discussion board here. You have course questions. There's a discussion board for that. I also have a quiz that I have you to, ungraded, of course, for you to tell me about you as a learner, your access to technology, your comfort with technology, and whatnot. From that point on, what you have is a schedule of the class. Chapter 1 on week 1, Chapter 2 on week 2. Usually there's 1 chapter per week, but sometimes there might be more than 1. And so be sure that you review this ahead of time. This is your planning. You can understand that if you look later and on February 24th, that week of February 24th, we're going to be covering Chapter 7. You'll have a discussion, quiz, and the article review, misspelled, caught that right here. Article review special assignment is due that week as well, so that you can plan ahead on all this. All right, so what I want to do now, let's focus on the course book itself. Let me get out of here, go to the course book, and I have a digital version myself here. So here's the cover, go into what the course book series is, an index on the digital version. These, you can click on these links, go right to those chapters, how the course book works, different sections in them, how the assignments outline with the American Psychological Association's expectations for a degree in psychology, and how the assignments line up with the American Association of Colleges and Universities value rubrics, which is another set of outcomes that we organize our assignments around in the world. So this is sort of like, why do I assign that? Not only to get the content, but also to achieve these particular outcomes that are monitored by external organizations like the APA and the AAC&U. So I got my A's mixed up there. So back to the course book. Here's the history of psychology. These are the changes I've made since the recent edition. There's me. And then here we are on the study of history of psychology. And this chapter in this course really focuses a little less on psychology and a little bit more on the actual science of studying history. History, and our view of history, is hindered by the fact that we're not there. We don't have time travel, can't go back, can't look at how things were and get a really accurate portrayal. All we have is what's left, the evidence that's left. And that evidence can be scant. I mean, for example, James Watson, famous psychologist, John Watson, upon his death, one of the aspects of his will was that all of his records, all of his notes, all of his experiments, everything that he had was destroyed. It was all burned. So that is gone. That's gone to history. And he willed that. And that, of course, has happened throughout history. So we have blank spaces where we have to make presumptions about what we know about John Watson simply by what's left. Let alone if we go to ancient history with the archaeologist, and we might just be looking at a few paintings, a few pieces of papyrus, or the drawings on the wall, or the actual cave in which people lived in, or the buildings, obviously the great historical buildings around the world, to make guesses as to what things are like. So we're always have this sort of limitation in terms of what information we have access to. Now, for the first discussion, what I want you to talk about is right now, if suddenly the world was depopulated and then aliens came down, always nice to talk about that event, right? If aliens came down and they were trying to figure you out, what would they find? What would they find? If they could access Facebook, if they could access your journal diary that you have in your desk or something like that, what would they be able to access to kind of figure you out? What are the documents that would be left, and how accurate would those actually be? If all they had to go on was your Facebook feed, how accurate would they be able to tell about you and who you are, your personality, and whatnot? So I have just kind of a clever, kind of interesting discussion about that. And then on the chapter quiz, after reading through that whole chapter, you're thinking about history and the study of history. I ask you, what can we learn from the study of the history of psychology? For you to contemplate, we're gonna look at some theories that are pretty way out there. I mean, we haven't always had an accurate vision of how people operate. So why do we have to study that? Why should we? What is the value of studying history? There is an answer to that. There is a reason why that we answer. And then in the study of history, I'll introduce you to two perspectives. One is the personalistic perspective. The other is the naturalistic perspective. And I want you to compare and contrast those, or just define them. The difference between personalistic and naturalistic, and answer a little question in the little paragraph that you're going to be putting together for that. Answer which one of those explains the historical incidents of simultaneous discovery. Meaning there might be a famous thing that gets discovered, but it wasn't only this person way over there in another part of the world discovered it at the same time. So you're looking at those two, personalistic and naturalistic ways of studying history. So keep in mind, right now we're just talking about the study of history in general, and we'll see how these things play out in the world of psychology, specifically in the subsequent chapters. So that's the expectations for this week. I look forward to seeing you online, and have a great week.